sake, you say I'm all gone. I've opened my mind to this little green seed. Could help us with pollution and the economy. And this little miracle got to ascend. It's got lots of names, so hey, let's call it hemp. It's the fastest natural resource the world's ever seen. It's got 77% cellulose, that's a lot more than trees, we say. So many uses, from textiles to tents. Build your house at a lot less expense. You can burn it as a fuel to say make electricity. It would be a lot nicer to the air that we breathe. We say top quality paper for the dollars you dream. Rubs up to medicines and the proteins we need. Paints, fabrics, varnishes is money well spent. Lincoln himself read his treaty on hemp. But you tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You say yeah that I'm too gone for you. So is a drug would like your cigarettes, your money and your coffee and those TV sets. Alcohol maybe is the one you should fear. It kills 100,000 of you every year. In 10,000 years, no one has died of a toke. What's not very nice is that CIA coke. I know what you say, it's the devil I'm from. Would you vote me into office if I built you a bomb? Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You say yeah that I'm too gone for you. You'd lock me up just for growing a weed. Everyone knows that nothing makes sense. You can lie and cheat on the blind, but you cannot smoke hemp. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You say yeah that I'm too gone for you. Whoopie-doo. I want you to tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You say yeah that I'm too gone for you.
So, next on our lineup, it's an honor to start bringing in, Tony, are you on the line?
Yes, can you hear me, Anndrea?
Yes, I sure can. Well, Tony Budden, thank you so much for taking the time. Now I'll just let you go ahead and take over. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what the Hemporium's all about and where you're from.
Okay, well, I'm sitting in a very dark Cape Town, South Africa. It's now Friday evening, midwinter. And Hemporium, we started in 1996, very early on for the South African market, because there was no natural and organic market. And it very much started with a piece of hemp canvas that landed in our laps. And we started making bags out of it, but very much for the kind of counterculture, almost the wear what you smoke market, because no one else really looked at the plant positively here yet. And as we learned and kind of grew ourselves and saw all the other opportunities, the construction, the paper, the oils, nutrition, we suddenly thought, hold on, this is something that is so perfect for Africa. We've got the land, we've got the people who need work, we've got the right climate, everything is lined up, but why aren't we growing this here? So we started digging around and getting more into the lobbying. And we set a very lofty goal early on into trying to showcase everything hemp has to offer. So very quickly we were making clothing, we had a body care range we developed locally, we had accessories, we were selling fabric, we were selling paper, we were importing twines and ropes. And the real temptation with hemp is you want to do everything, but often then you spread yourself really thin. So we ran like that at the same time as starting to lobby and really try and say, look, to the government, here is right in our hands. We're holding these seeds that could be jobs, houses, and food. Let us grow this plant. And it's taken a long time. It stagnated in research for more than 10 years in South Africa. Basically, the research, the companies that were doing the research just getting more and more money to do more research. And we started our research in around 1998, and it still is currently technically in research. But a big step last year, which was we got our first permit to do something that's the next level on from agricultural research, which is what's called commercial incubation research. So first time it's coming off government land onto private farms, onto community farms, and we are starting to grow the industry.
Well, that's so amazing, Tony. I mean, what you guys have been able to do in what seems like a long time, but in perspective, all of that building up and that research that seemed to be taking so long really added what I would think a lot of legitimacy to what your efforts and the efforts of your entire team were doing there in South Africa. What can you explain to us? Are there any other parts in Africa that are, following your lead?
I think in Africa, everyone looks to South Africa for the lead, but because of this, the politics here and this stagnation in research, a lot of countries have been waiting for us to step forward, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. But we are starting to hear of projects in Mozambique, in Malawi, Ghana. The challenge is there very much at the moment, and it's something it seems small, but it's something that we're really going to have to look at as an industry, is finding the right cultivars that will grow so close to the equator. A lot of the European cultivars that we are forced to do research on down here, they don't like the shorter day lengths of Africa. So to find the right cultivars is essential, and that's why we're really trying to work with the Australians. They're a few years ahead of us on that. And to look at, we've got similar climates, look at finding these varieties. And I think Summer mentioned it, even between Canada and the States, there's the variety that is going to be specific for Africa and for different conditions in Africa. That's our next big push. Politically, we've got the same issue here, canophobia. A lot of the politicians, I meet with them, they all get it. I take all our samples in, they touch and feel, and they go, wow, this is a no-brainer. But to get them to stand up politically and say, right, I'm going to be your champion in government, I'm going to drive this, that has been a little bit of a challenge. And also we run into a bit of an issue internationally with World Bank loans, IMF, USAID, all of these things still telling us that cannabis is a drug, whether you're smoking it or feeding people with it or building houses. And that can affect certain things regarding interest rates on loans, because if that situation isn't taken care of, then we're still seen as promoting a drug industry because we're growing cannabis. So what's happening in America at the moment is it's crucial to the rest of the world, because there are a lot of the third world countries that are taking their lead from America.
Yeah, so one of the questions that come in from one of our panelists, Boris, he's got questions about talking about South Africa and big problems in the ghetto populations, and I know this is something that's really true to your heart. And he's wondering if there's ever been, what the consideration is in looking at a project scheme for growing, low-profile houses from field biomass. So I know that this is something that you're taking quite to heart. So can you share a little bit about, your project with building in South Africa and how you think how you know that can help with these ghetto populations that you have?
Absolutely. We quickly saw in those meetings that we were having with your different politicians that when we pulled out the fabric and the paper and all, they were interested. But as soon as we pulled out the building materials, our samples of hemp insulation, hemp chipboard, the hempcrete, their eyes lit up, literally, and they were really interested in the building side. So we took it on ourselves to build South Africa, or Africa, as far as we know, first total hemp house. We built it with hempcrete, hemp chipboard, hemp insulation, hemp carpets, hemp couches, hemp curtains. We oiled the wood with hemp oil. Basically took it as far as we could with making an experiential place where you could come in, touch and feel and go, hold on, I can feel the energy in this house, and I can see that most of the wall is grown in 4 months, and there's no other resource that we know of that can do that. But if you look at our project online, there's a lot of videos and information. We chose to do it at the upper end because in Africa and in most countries, there's this thing called the aspiration model, where people want to live in something that they see in the magazines or on TV, or that it's much easier to get it onto that level and filter down than it is to go in and go try to brand ourselves as low cost. Because the reality is, until we've got economies of scale, we're not going to be low cost. We've still got a long way of building the industry up to get to a level where we can compete with brick and cement on a cost level, because our big push in South Africa, and as a natural industry, is about communicating to people the difference between price and cost. We always go, well, how does a hempcrete house, how does it differ in price to brick and cement, which is the normal building material here? And obviously on price, it's a little bit more, but the cost is so much less. And that's a whole re-engineering of a culture of people when they buy something to understand the life cycle of a plant or of a product. So I'm already feeling that I'm lucky enough or blessed enough to be living in the house that we built. And my energy costs every month are a fraction of what my friends are spending. We in South Africa, we deny that we have a cold climate, but we do. We get down to pretty much close to freezing in some areas in winter, but we live in cement and brick with very little insulation. And I had a Canadian come to me the other day who said he's never been colder in a house than in South Africa. So it's a whole new introduction of bringing this idea of natural building materials in. And that's, as I said, to start at the top. The ideal is to go to the low-cost housing, to be building houses for people on the ground. Obviously, that's our ultimate aim. But as I said, it's all based around creating the industry, collaborating, looking at the moment, you see in the industry people fighting over a pie that hasn't gone into the oven yet. We get a lot of people who are suddenly waking up to the potential of hemp, and they want to get in. They want to get in and they want to control it. And the first investors often ask me, like, okay, well, how will we stop people doing this? Like, you're not getting it. What we're trying to say is this is a big enough pie for everyone. And it's the same thing you mentioned a little bit earlier. The more we help each other grow this industry, the more we can all benefit. And it's the next level, as I said, for us is getting we've got our what's now called the Department of Human Settlements. It was our Department of Housing, which is when the ANC government took over in South Africa and apartheid ended, they had to build millions and millions of houses as fast as possible because they had promised this to their voters that everyone was going to get a house. But they built these terrible concrete block, tin roof houses that are literally a fridge in the summer, in the winter, and a hothouse in the summer. Now they've changed their name. The language has changed. They're calling themselves the Department of Human Settlements. So the humanity is coming back in, and they're starting to look at communities, at the other needs, community centers, shade, transport. And they recently come to us and they're interested in building 20 low-cost houses out of hempcrete, which will be huge. And that's what our government is saying to us at the moment is it might be quite a while before we can all a farmer can go to the government and say, I want to grow hemp, and then I'll create my market. They want us to create the market first so that we can say, look, we've got an order for 20 houses. For that, we need 50 hectares of hemp. This is who's going to be growing it. This is where the community is that we're working with. This is who's processing it. This is where we're getting the seeds. And this is where the product is going. And create closed loop systems so that we can work on a project-for-project basis. And that obviously is a more sustainable way of doing it as well. And we learned that from the Canadians. The Canadians, the first year, everyone grew hemp and everyone tried to sell hemp at the first year at the same time. And it nearly killed the industry because there wasn't the market and there wasn't the processing facilities. So we can grow it organically that way. That is our aim, to work with the government. But obviously, the big thing is hemp needs economies of scale. So we do need the permission to grow larger amounts.
Yeah, and I think that this is something, Tony, that we're hearing throughout. We're hearing, a couple of key points. We have a lot still to do in our industry. We have a lot still to develop. We have, collaboration and communication amongst the industry and government is really vital to strategically positioning ourselves to where we can make this industry go forward. And I think South Africa has, it's really advanced in the fact that, you can bring in hemp and process it there, hemp grain. Hemp foods are legal food in South Africa. You now have these, level up from a government research trial. So, big props to you and all the farmers you're working with and your entire team for staying with industrial hemp in South Africa and really fighting for the rights of farmers there, which in turn fights for the rights for farmers all across the world.
Thank you very much. And we'd just like to see the industry stay as open as possible because for us, the reason we got involved with the cannabis plant or with hemp is that spirit of abundance and that it can provide for so much. So the minute people come to us and say, well, we want to control this, I walk away from that meeting and I just say, look, I can't deal with you. And it might be altruistic or it might be an idealist, but that is really the way that I want to conduct this business. I believe that there is so much in this plant and that it can offer. And I'm holding that vision. Obviously, we've got to do the nuts and bolts of creating the business and selling the fabric and getting the brand out there and getting people to touch and feel. That's why the clothing industry and what Summer is doing is, it's very important because it's such a tangible way for someone to experience cannabis that isn't smoking. You walk out, you can see what someone's wearing, but you have no idea what's in their fridge at home or what's, in their bathroom cabinet, what kind of cosmetics they're using. But the clothing is such a good way to get the message forward and to say, look, hold on, touch this, feel this, and you can see it's not what you thought it was. And
absolutely.
That we still.
And I tell you, I have a pair of a few things from the Hemporium's fashion line, and they definitely wear really nice and have classy cuts to them. So everybody take the time to go over and visit the Hemporium's website. As Tony said, there's lots of videos and education material up there because one of the philosophies of the Hemporium is to innovate, educate, and cultivate. So we really appreciate the fact that you're sticking with that, Tony. Now, Casper or Paul, did you have any questions for Tony?
Yes, I want to know how it is that your government is able to create a market for hemp goods, then still at the same time, have they developed any type of future at the taxation of it and how they're going to implement the economy of it, who's going to oversee it, or is that still also up in limbo?
Well, the challenge with Africa as a whole is we're not dealing like in Canada or most of Europe. You're dealing with modern farmers who have all the information, have their emails, the GPS coordinates, they're online. We've got to deal here with emerging farmers, and sometimes maybe they've got an acre or two of land, and they're very spread out. And we know that it won't happen in South Africa where it just gets permission for some big commercial farmer to grow hemp. We have to involve the community farmers. We have to revitalize our rural economy. Otherwise, our townships and the ghettos around every city just keep growing with people who leave the rural areas coming to looking for non-existent jobs. So that is a very important. The regulation side is very important and a very crucial part of what we're looking at, and we're trying to work it through the traditional leadership structures, that we can go through the chiefs of the areas into the small scale farmers and manage it by that. But obviously it's a whole different system to anything that's run anywhere else in the world. The government is coming on board with that, but more they're asking us to set it up, which is a little bit unfair. But the big part for us as an industry is right now we have to prove demand. Right now we have to go to them and they're saying to us, okay, we hear you, we see the potential for this plant, we see what it can do, but tell us how you're going to do it. who's going to process it, who's going to manufacture it, what products you're going to do, where you're going to do it. And, obviously that is now going from a company and an industry that's been talking a lot and importing hemp fabric from China and chipboard from France and insulation from England and seed and oils from Canada and having a brand and selling a product to creating an industry. And going from advocacy into developing an industry is a massive shift. So right now we're at this crucial point. And the government is walking around the edges, but haven't yet given us the resources that we need to take it to that next level.
All right. Well, I would think that the surrounding environment that South Africa sits in, there's so much hunger. There are so many nations around South Africa who are starving and doing without, that we know this plant makes a tremendous healthy porridge, and the food that comes from it is amazing. And it also helps to create shelter so that those who cannot afford luxurious homes or even a hempcrete home can put together a nice canvas hemp tent. I would think that if for no other reason than for the survival of the most poor in our world today, that your government would be just on the bandwagon trying to save themselves and those around them.
Well, it's happening, and what I've noticed a shift in when I go to the meetings. 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the word alternative was just like, hey man, that's alternative, that's hippie, we're not going to look at that. Right now, people going, what, you've got an alternative? Tell us about it. We want to hear about these alternatives because we're aware that if we carry on our current track, we're pretty much all stuffed. There's no ways we can carry on consuming the way we've been going. So all of a sudden, they're looking seriously at what we've got to offer. And, as I said, with the spirit of abundance in this plant, if we can just keep that going and communicate that and work together as an industry to actually build this, as I said, this massive hemp pie. Even if we get a small little slice of it for ourselves, for the rewards for the years we put in, it's beautiful if it comes out of a big pie. But people at the moment, you seem to be scrambling over the raw hemp dough that hasn't even gone into the oven yet. So I'd like to really speak to everyone out there in the industry who's listening. Let's keep it open, keep the information flowing, and remember why we got into this industry in the first place.
That's exactly right. And Tony, that's a really great lead in talking about how you move from, an activistic point of view, working with the government, making those changes. And then, as one of the things Teri hit on was, how do you have got to build that business plan. You need to know what those markets are, not only for yourself, but as you move forward with your industry. So, Tony, thank you so much. Everybody take time to go down and visit Tony if you ever have the opportunity to go to Cape Town, South Africa. Go to the store, go to the cafe, get your full Hemporium experience. So, Tony, thank you so much for sharing and encouraging the continuation of sharing within our industry. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and I hope to meet you all later in the year. I'm really hoping to get over that side, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely, and Tony will be speaking both at the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance Conference and hopefully down at the Hemp Industry Association. So Tony will be in North America, so come on up to our conferences and meet and shake his hand in person. So thank you so much, Tony. Have a great day.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And I must say that the panel so far has been amazing, quite illustrious. And who is next on board?
All right, so Boris Banas, are you out there?
Hey, Anndrea, I'm here.
Hi, Boris. Well, everybody, I'd like the opportunity to introduce Boris Banas with Hemp Seed Oil Europe. And Boris, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you've got going on now in Europe?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for having me here. It's a really big pleasure and an honor. My hemp experience practically began back when, 1997, I think, when I was in USA during my university studies, and I bought this nice little book from John Rulek called Industrial Hemp, and I said, wow. Of course, I knew cannabis, I knew something about hemp, but when I read this concentrated information about technical applications, I was amazed. So what we did, we decided to translate this little book in Slovak language. We did it. We did some fundraiser, published about 4,000 copies back in 1999, and we started to distribute this book free of charge to people. try to build up the awareness of the Czechoslovak population and authorities about hemp. So this is where it all began.
All right, that's so great. And this is one of the things about North America helping, and John Rulak's Little Industrial Hemp Handbook really starting to shape a real change that happened in Slovakia. So tell us, what happened in Slovakia, and what was why not hemp's involvement in this legislation?
Well, Slovakia became the member of European Union in 2004. And of course, there is this so-called common agricultural policy, which actually governs the cultivation of hemp in Europe. But individual governments may or may not apply these hemp rules. So still, industrial cannabis varieties were not sort of exempt from the toxic substance law. And it was already 2008, 4 years after we have joined the EU, and Slovak farmers could not grow hemp freely as their competitors in other European countries. I mean, they could grow it, but the licensing procedure was really a pain. So we decided, us, our organization, and other two, we decided to form sort of a pressure group, and we filed a complaint to Brussels, to the headquarters of EU. We filed a complaint against our government, and after a few months, our government had to make the amendment to the toxic substance law. So since 2009, our farmers can grow hemp, industrial hemp, as any other farmer in the EU.
Very interesting. Now, one of the things that sort of has reigned true throughout this conversation is talking about registered cultivars. How many registered cultivars are there currently in the EU list, and what's that based on?
Well, at this moment, we have 43 registered cultivars, and the bottom line is the THC content in dried flowering tops. This limit is 0.2% of THC. Of course, there is a common regulation that specifies sampling and testing methodology. And this is all performed by national agricultural authorities.
So there's a really good, solid working relationship between, the common agricultural policy, and a lot of that drives back to, which I know Boris is a member of, is the European Industrial Hemp Association, which really is the, European Hemp Association's voice when it comes to being in Brussels and help pushing these change, also with the help of people working on the ground in places like the Czech Republic and in Slovakia. Now, can you tell us a little bit about, how you transform from being, okay, I'm going to educate, I want to put this book out, we're going to, go to Brussels, we're going to make some change. So now what have you been working on, and what's your role now?
Well, about 4 years ago, I had to quit my previous job, which at the end seems like a blessing to me. So finally, I had time to really put all my energy into developing the hemp business. And, we met about 7 years ago at those AHA conferences, and the Canadian crowd started to talk about hemp food and how they have actually developed the North American hemp food market. So me and my partner, Michal, we suddenly saw a nice opportunity here. So we became involved with Hemp All Canada. That's who we represent now on European market. And we now put all our energy into marketing luxurious, the best hemp food in the world, in Europe.
And so tell me, what does the European hemp market look like? What percentage of that market is in the fiber side, and what percentage of that market is now to food? And are you seeing a shift to occur?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that hemp is still considered a fiber crop in Europe, right? So the majority of the acreage goes to the stalk production. Just to give you a perspective, last year, in 2012, the total cultivation area in Europe was 14,000 hectares, which is 35,000 acres, and only a small portion of it goes to the seed production. So, for instance, Europe produced 76,000 metric tons of hemp straw but only 7,000 metric tons of the seeds.
All right. So, and are you starting to see, of course, as we've heard about market planning and, developing that market, are you starting to see an increase in the demand for food-based hemp products in Europe?
Oh, definitely, because as was already said, I think by Teri, the beauty of the social media allows you to really promote for very, very little budget all these topics. So the consumers are educated, the prejudices are being torn down. So more and more people accept hemp food as a regular part of their diet.
And I think it's very interesting, when you're talking about 10 to 15% of all available hemp seed in Europe is used in the food sector, but a lot of that goes into the animal feed and wild bird feed. Now, I think that this is something that really, that we in Canada and other parts of the world are looking to Europe as the lead, because right now we do not have permission to feed animals your livestock hemp food. So, that's something that we're always looking to Europe as the lead, and we're starting to see these changes here in Canada with getting hemp food registered as chicken feed, and now starting on our ruminant trial. So I know that you guys have some really interesting research. Can you tell me a little bit about the research that you've been doing as of late?
Oh, yeah. Actually, now it's already in the stage of product development, and it seems we are very, very excited about it. It seems we'll be the first one in the world to introduce the whole line of hemp food derived from the germinated hemp seed, which is very, very exciting.
Now, this is great, and I'll let everybody know that, the work that Boris and Mikkel have been working on and their team, this is really something to show that there still is room for innovation when it comes to production of hemp food. So we can take something, these guys have taken an idea and now, as you said, gone into market development. So can you tell us what's going to be, what kind of products are going to come out of this new sprouting project?
Well, actually, we will introduce a whole line of products, including germinated and dried whole seed. Then we are going to press the oil, which we are already doing during our trials. Then we would mill the press cake and produce the protein powders and even dehull the germinated seed. Well, you have to understand that we are not talking about real sprouting when the green thing comes out. We are only talking about soaking the seed in water long enough for enzymes to start do their biochemical changes in the seed. And then we have a technology already at hand which can dry the seed down real fast under the raw temperature, which then allows us to process the seed, the germinated seed, as it was a regular hemp seed, but with quite different nutritional properties.
And that's very interesting. And also, I'd like for you just to take a few moments to hit on what efforts are going on. This is another concept that has been running true throughout everybody, is looking at, the different types of cultivars that are going to be suited for different types of applications. So what kind of work are you doing now to try to, resolve and push forward with varieties?
Well, Europe is quite diverse in its climate, yes, and if we want to really introduce hemp into Central European environment, we need to test some varieties and learn and teach the farmers how to use these varieties properly. So at this moment, we are also involved with the government-sponsored Industrial Research Institute of Vegetable Crops, which we have hired to conduct a 3 to 4 year variety trial. We are now using 2 Polish varieties and a Finola variety from Finland, which is widespread in Canada, as you know very well. We would really love to incorporate some Canadian varieties, but this year, we just didn't have enough time to finish all the licensing, import and export licensing paperwork, because the officials really want to see the nice stamped hard paper copies, not just PDFs. So hopefully next year we will also add 1 or 2 Canadian varieties to this project, so we will know how they behave in our climate.
Now, Casper or Paul, do you have any questions for Boris?
Yes. The number of products that can be made is absolutely amazing. But example, I think, is in Australia. They have food products made of hemp, but when they are marketed, on the bag or on the box, it must say, do not consume, this is not for edible, that type of thing. Yeah. Do you have those types of rules and regulations where you're at now, or are they pretty sane?
Unfortunately, not. Fortunately, not. The food, hemp seed is not governed by the United Nations Convention on toxic substances. So, from the perspective of the law or international engagements of individual countries, hemp seed is not a scheduled substance. But on the other hand, Europe does not have any common law or food safety policy with respect to the content of THC in the food. It's very good what you have in Canada and USA, so that there is an officially stated level of THC residues, which I believe is 10 ppm. So in some countries in Europe, we have these limits. For instance, in Germany and Holland, the limit is 5 parts per million. In Italy, for instance, they don't want to see any THC. So there is lots of paperwork involved. And in countries like Greece, people are prosecuted for importing hemp protein powder to their country. So it's rather silly still. Europe has to work a lot on this regulation side. At this moment, the only legal activity began with the animal feed certification, but it's still in progress. So there is it's a gray zone. We are probably walking on a thin ice, but since nobody is bothering, we just do what we want to do.
Well, and there's another industry that does spring up from the plant itself. One example is if there was a lot of harvesting of this particular plant all around the world, there would be a need for a decoricator, as an example, which could be built by a country like yours, by people like yours who need jobs that would be able to put together such a fine machine and export that. So I would think that your leaders would be able to see not only the benefit of the plant itself to help raise itself up out of an economic situation and to bring people jobs and better products, but it would also give them an opportunity to compete more so on the open market in areas that no one else is.
Oh, absolutely, because the perspective of the small farmers is very, very difficult with respect of hemp farming, because, for example, in Central Europe, which are like countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Hungary, there is almost no decortication facility. And if you want to really develop a nice business plan for, let's say, 600 hectares, you have to look at the investment of 5 to 6 million euros, and nobody's going to lend you money, because unless you have a large-scale efficient technology, then you cannot deliver the fiber at the market price. So really, I agree with you. The small-scale decortication is the way to go to promote hemp growing.
Right. So where this comes back to talking about economies of scale and working with varieties that are suited to the environment, and also not only working with those varieties, but looking at what your end product's going to be. So I'd really like to thank Boris for taking the time today, and all of his colleagues in Europe, and all of the efforts that they've done over time, and Mikhail for keeping with it and continuing to do is what we've all said today is, sharing more about industrial hemp. So go over and visit hempseedoil.eu. The guys have really put together a great bit of information. They've got all kinds of great PDFs to download talking about hemp foods and their nutritional properties. So I'd like to thank you so much, Boris, for taking the time today, and hello to everybody there in Slovakia.
Thank you, Anndrea. Maybe if I can just give my big hugs to my daughter Margareta, who should be listening to the show now in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yes, hello, Margareta. Great. We'll talk to you later, Boris. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for being part of this amazing presentation to the global community as to why it is so important to end industrial hemp prohibition, all prohibition, but so many people are so blind to the history of this amazing plant, which is why we are having this particular discussion for our world leaders to learn from. Who is our next guest?
Well, the next guest on Time for Hemp on American Freedom Radio is Greg Flavall. Greg, are you on the line?
He has not managed to make it at this point, but
all right. Well, do you guys have any questions for me, perhaps?
There is a large hemp industry that is thriving between the two countries in Canada and America, and it is quite amazing the amount of imports that are coming out of one country into the other, and that seems like a complete imbalance in trade, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we're seeing right now is that, as one of Summer said, textiles are huge in the United States. We know now that, hemp foods from Canada are moving all across the world. Tony said we're bringing hemp foods into South Africa. We're seeing them come into Australia. We're seeing them come, into the United States. So to balance that, we'll need more of that cultivation happening. And one of the things that, I'm trying to do the best I can is by sharing and continuing to educate. And, working with the Oregon State University, we graduated 36 students that now have university-level credit for industrial hemp, and we're looking to take the next leg of this course up to 100 students out there. This is a course that you can take from anywhere in the world. You can take this as an extended education course. You can take this for university credit. I had students ranging from 18 years old to 66 years old with all various types of skills, and it's something you take right from your computer. Besides that, I've just yesterday I was up in the Parkland region in Roblin at the Parkland Crop Diversification Foundation, and you can look up PCDF, Parkland Crop Diversification Foundation, and download many years of their extension work that they've been doing on industrial hemp. So any of the countries out there that are really looking at, how do I develop a research project? What would I look at in this research project? Looking at what the Parkland Crop Diversification Foundation has done and their extension work has been really vital in really shaping, the Canadian agriculture. But delivering that message is really important to the farmer and working with the farmer, because if the farmer doesn't have that ag extension, they're not going to know what varieties are going to work for me. What should be my seeding rate? Is there a new piece of machinery out there that I should be looking at? So that relationship between ag extension and the relationship between the producer is really vital. In addition to that, over the next couple of weeks, I will be gearing up to do the THC sampling here in Canada, and that is a requirement by our Canadian regulations where you have to go into the field and pull the samples that are then sent off to the lab to make sure that plant is testing within our regulations at 0.3%. And this year in Canada, we're looking at around 50,000 acres to be licensed and cultivated across all of Canada. And part of what PCDF is doing is participating in a national variety trial. So we have a variety trial that's been going on all across Canada. And that's really showing that, one variety, as we've heard, one variety might grow well in one place and might not perform so well in the other. So, that is a message running through also is that, we really need to make sure that we're growing the variety or the cultivar that's really suited to our environment and into our end application.
What is the differentiation between those varieties, Anndrea?
Yes, those are based on height. They could be based on the distance between the node. It really depends what your end product is.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hey, this is Greg.
Oh, great, Greg. I'm just answering one question here, and we'll let you take her on. Yeah, so that's based on seed size. That's based on 1,000 kernel weight. That's based on, height and stature of the crop, for instance. So they could be looking to have short-stature cultivars that would be going for grain only, medium-sized cultivars that would be a dual-purpose type of cultivar for fiber and for grain or for seed, or really tall cultivars that would be deemed for fiber only. And now, talking about that fiber, I want to just turn the radio listening ears here to Greg Flavall. Now, Greg, why don't you tell us a little bit about hemp technologies and the work you've done in North America and how now you've taken that back to New Zealand?
Well, it's been a fantastic journey starting hemp technologies in Asheville, North Carolina, where we built the first permitted hemp home in America and the first passive house certified hemp house in the world, all made with hemp, which we had to, of course, bring in from Europe because it's not legal to grow in the United States. Absolutely absurd, but that's the way it is. Anyway, after getting a bit of traction there, I was invited to start the first hemp house in New Zealand down in Christchurch. I came down here in August of 2011, and the first morning I was here, there was an earthquake, so another one, of course, and we got rocked out of bed, and the whole project got put on hold for 8 months. So I came up to the area that I was born, which is Taranaki, and lo and behold, I felt like I was home, and it was legal to grow industrial hemp here. We got the first license to grow since 1938 in this area, and did a trial crop last year of 1 acre, funded by the third leading political party here, the Green Party, on a certified organic farm. And we got another license about 20 minutes from New Plymouth into the area called Uranui, which is another microclimate. And we grew 10 acres out there of both of these crops. We trialed with the Compulti dual-purpose seed, and we went in 23rd and 24th of November, which was about a month later than we should have gone in, really. And we didn't know that we were going to get a drought all through the summer. But lo and behold, we pulled out about 1.25 tons seed off the 10 acres that we harvested in April. And that straw, interestingly enough, is sitting in the barn on the farmer's land, ready to be processed later this year when we start building the processing plant to build his daughter's house on the farm, all made with hempcrete. In the meantime...
You're talking about vertically integrating. You're talking about working with the farmer, growing the crop, harvesting it, now talking about getting into processing it and all the way into the home. So, Greg, can you tell us exactly what is hempcrete?
Well, hempcrete is a mixture of the soft inner core of the industrial hemp plant after the bast fiber has been stripped off it. It looks a little bit like wood mulch when you put it through the processing machine. And we mix that with some locally sourced and harvested limes and a little bit of water to make it stick. And then we place it or cast it in situ between temporary frames around the structural members of the house. That creates a monolithic light concrete style infill and super insulating and high sound attenuation for a livable, breathable, beautifully clean air home. And, I might add, about 75 to 80% more energy efficient.
And so lots of people have questions about, what's the R value of hemp? How much is building with hempcrete going to cost? And, how long does it take to start to reap the benefits of that cost when it comes to this energy savings you're talking about?
Well, that's a really good question, Anndrea. Many people ask us this question, and typically the best answer to give is that it's comparable in construction costs to brick and block. If you're going out to build a brick and block home, which is around a balloon-framed or stick-framed structure, it's going to cost you, in the United States, it'll cost you about $175 a square foot. And in fact, in some places, that cost is getting close to about $200 a square foot. In New Zealand, the average cost, for example, published by the New Zealand government for new house construction here is at $1,750 a square meter, or $175 a square foot in imperial terms. We are building the first 2 permitted hemp homes here at around $135 to $140.
Wow. So cheaper.
So actually, yes, I don't like saying cheaper. I mean, this is a premium product, Anndrea, but yes, less expensive. And that's including the fact that we've had to import the materials from our partner's farm in the Netherlands because we don't have enough material yet. That's something that we're working on for this next year, because we've got, in such a considerably short period of time, we're getting a lot of traction and a lot of interest for building hempcrete homes.
And so when somebody comes to Hemp Technologies and they say, I've read a little bit about this and, I think this is what I want to do. One of the questions that people often ask me is, okay, I'm in the U.S., I'm in Canada, I'm somewhere, and how do I go about this, and how do I get the building codes and get my permit? So can you talk a little bit about how that works and how that worked for the homes that Hemp Technologies worked on and with our colleagues in the United States?
Yeah, for sure. We first found out about the non-conventional building codes when we were working with some building scientists in Asheville, North Carolina, to build the Now House project. And we discovered, interestingly enough, that people, and it's not actually illogical, but people have been building mud huts, for years and years and centuries before we had building inspectors and building compliance and safety issues. And in every code, in every state, every region, every county, every town, they have to have included in there or grandfathered in the non-conventional or alternative building codes. That allows for new materials to be introduced under, obviously under scrutiny, and they have to comply, but it allows for everybody to go ahead and use, if they need to, alternative or non-conventional building codes. Interestingly enough, in New Zealand, we've done the same thing, using the non-conventional, or in here we call it the alternative, building codes.
We are down to the last couple of minutes of the broadcast. We end at 54 minutes past the hour on the show. And I want to thank everybody for the amazing conversation that we have brought the world and making available a fantastic tool for education. And Paul, I want to say thank you too for being on the broadcast.
My pleasure. I've learned a lot listening to these folks. Thank you, Anndrea, for organizing such a great show, and nice to virtually meet you, Greg.
Hey, likewise. Hope again sometime.
Anndrea, if you had just one thing left to say to the Congress and the Senate and to the UN as to why industrial hemp needs to be reintroduced into the market, what would that be?
I would say that this is an agricultural crop that provides food and fiber for the health of our farms across the globe.
Thank you so very much. This is an ongoing presentation every Friday in August. We will be doing 2 hours of no commercial, uninterrupted presentation on why it is so important to end prohibition. We ask that you let your friends know about this. You will be able to find this at the Time for Hemp website. Make it a point to share this MP3 with all your friends. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our
I've been playing with this band for 2 years, and I still don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Well, David, you know, a wise man, a very wise man, he once called it the diggity dank. I tell you, friends, it don't matter what you call it, as long as you twist it and roll it and smoke it down. I tell you, my friends, it don't matter what it looks like, as long as it ain't got no seeds and very little stems. We like the green that come up from the ground. We smoke it, pass it all around. We got a lot of friends in a bed, and tonight we raise it right. We smoke it light, we light it up, we puff it down underground. Foot and a half below the water table, pump it around. 24/7 to 20 to 24, 4 to the 7, 4 to the 20, and puff it, the green and green. We take the dank, we put it to paper and roll it around. We pass it, smoke it, the blueberry down. Smoke it, the blue,